Blue Cords, number one draft pick in the Super Draft, through to the Hall of Fame. Maybe it was destined to be so, but it's not quite such a straightforward path. How ready was a boy in Colac for the demands of the professional football world?
I just had a laugh there. That's, physically on field, I thought I was ready. Off field, I guess I had a long way to go. I guess when you grow up, I left school year 11, moved to Melbourne as a 17-year-old. I guess the education back then probably wasn't to what it was in Melbourne, because I know that you spoke about the Super Draft. You had Bally and Juddy, both private school boys. What I found out later was they'd have guys that had been drafted from that school come back and educate them, tell them what to eat and drink before a game to fuel yourself, how to recover, how to prepare for the next week. My introduction into senior footy was, as a 15-year-old back in Colac, was a piece of pizza and a can of beer. So things have changed for the better, but I guess that's how we grew up in the country, and things have come a long way.
The modern phenomenon is the number one draft pick is seen at some clubs as the saviour figure, but maybe not so much as at Glenferrie when you arrived?
No, I think the first introduction to Hawthorn, there was a protest that they didn't want Trent Croad to leave. So I think there was about 5,000 people down at Glenferrie Oval hating me or whoever they were going to take as the number one draft pick. So luckily we had a function in Gather Round, and I asked the lady who attended that, did I do enough to change your mind? And she said slowly, but we finally got there. So it goes to show the passion that Hawthorn supporters, but all club supporters go through when they see someone who they want to barrack and cheer for a number of years and going to get shipped off over the other side and bring in an untried, unknown kid. Luckily after a while I was able to get there.
How steep was the learning curve, and how central a piece is the change of coach when Alistair Clarkson comes in?
It was massive. I guess when you're 17 and you get drafted, you want to continue to do things your own way. And there was people around that you could probably lean towards and listen, but you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know a lot at the time. And I guess the change of coach, Clarko coming in, Andrew Russell coming across, I guess guiding a young kid was no more. It was, if you're ever going to live up to your potential, you need to start acting like a professional footballer. You've got to stop going back to Colac every weekend. You need to spend more time around the guys at the football club who think professional lifestyle. So I think there was a few hard conversations with Clarko and Andrew, but as I said, it was always on reaching your potential and not falling short.
And they pushed you. How close to breaking point?
I think I didn't know it until a few years later, but I think Croft went and spoke to Andrew Russell and said, "You're going to push this kid out of football." And Jack said, "Oh, we'll have to wait and see, because I'm not going easy on him." So I think that's the care and the guide that we had at the football club. You had senior blokes who would go and try and step in when they needed to, but I think what Andrew Russ and Clarko really saw was they knew how to read me, they knew what buttons to push and how I respond.
And then you became the prolific midfielder that you were drafted as, and Buddy there recalls the 35 disposals and 6 goals. And no sooner have you bedded down than Clarko wants to take you out.
Yeah, I guess that was about mid-2008. I'd finally, after the first 3 or 4 years, it was a bit rocky. I'd had a lot of injuries. Juddy had a Brownlow, a BNF and a premiership. So I think the comparison there was definitely favoured towards him. But I guess things had started to turn around. I'd started to understand through good pre-seasons how to look after your body, that performance on the field was starting to come. And then Clarko come late 2008 and said, "We want to move you from midfield to half back." And I'm like, I've just tried to start to prove why you picked me up. But I guess he knew the right things to say. He was hanging that, I guess, the carrot, dangling that carrot to me, sort of saying that you could sit there and continue to get individual accolades or awards, but if you do the team first thing and play a position that's going to benefit us as a group, then a premiership medal is why we all play football, and you'll have one of those at the end of the year if you listen. And it worked out that, he was correct.
Annoyingly, he was always right.
Yeah, I didn't know how I would have responded if we didn't quite get there, but if someone sits down and talks it through, and that was one thing, is he knew what to say, he always had answers for what you're going to come back with, but when a coach dangles that, and it turns out that way, and then you sort of see all the hard work that you put in for. You understand that you're just a pawn in a game of football, and whatever you can do to help succeed or to help playing that last Saturday in September is, you'll do whatever you can.
So suddenly you're in the 2008 grand final, but things haven't necessarily gone to plan in the prelim. What's your week like?
No, I think Cozzie's here. I went back at the end of the first quarter and tried to spoil, and Cozzie kneed me in the ribs. Didn't think much of it, but I coughed up blood, and then all of a sudden the doctors were a bit paranoid and got through the game, no problems. But then obviously when you replay it on TV, it's a bit of a circus of what's going to happen. And I remember going into the medical rooms with Andrew Lambert and Andrew Russell and Peter Queen. I think Andrew said, well, no point getting a scan. If you get through the fitness test, we're going to test you this week. If you get through, then we know you're right to play. If you don't, then your ribs are probably a bit more serious than what we thought. So we put a bit of padding on. We already had enough padding around the midriff anyway, so added a little bit more around the ribs and, got through unscathed.
Did you get it tested out in the game?
Stokesy played junior footy with Stokesy. He came up and threw a couple of jabs to it early in the game. I sort of put my arms up, and as soon as he realised there wasn't going to be much of a fight back, he moved on, and I think Cam Mooney ran through me in the first quarter and had a bit of a laugh to him, and we went on and played on, and things worked out our way.
They did work out your way, and you won the Norm Smith medal. So this is the marker of being a big game player. What did it mean to you at that stage to be adjudged best of field in a grand final?
To be honest, not much. And I mean that in a respectful way. It's more when you go through our first 6 years at Hawthorn, we didn't play finals. So all of a sudden, culture changed. The mindset between it all was more so about us as a team, us as a group, rather than the individual. And I said before about the coaches and the mindset, and what the message they said to us was, it's not about what you do individually, it's about what you do as a group. So the fact that I was sitting up there, the only thing, I think I put the premiership medal, I put the Norm Smith medal underneath my shirt, and was the same as my 22 teammates, and just had the premiership medal out, because ultimately we had blokes that missed out on the day, but we're all there, and we were able to attack and beat a team that no one gave us any chance of beating.
And this became your mantra, Luke. You would still perform in these big games, but it was always the collective ahead of yourself. How did that manifest in the golden years as your team wins 3 in a row?
It's sort of hard to say. We went through some tough years. We went through 2011 prelim when we're ahead of Collingwood at 3/4 time. I guess a few, as us leaders, did a few things that you probably wouldn't put as team first, and then grand final day the next year against Sydney, when we went in there as favourites, we fell short. So I know people sort of sit back and go, he's had a lot of success, but he went through some hard times as well. We learned a lot, and I think the good part about our group is we learnt from our mistakes, and that was something that we sort of put into focus after that. It was about everything we did, whether it was pre-season, whether it was home and away games, big games. It was about doing those simple little things that we failed in that prelim and we failed in the grand final against Sydney. In
that light, how gratifying was the three-peat?
It was great, especially when a bloke who was put his legend status at the AFL. I remember seeing a message from Jay saying that, you know, the success of what Hawthorn went through in the 80s, but if we could go through and get a three-peat, it would be the best achievement of the Hawthorn Football Club. And to have someone like Jason Dunstall say that to a group of players, you sort of sit back and go, what we're doing is actually be proud of what we've been able to achieve.
There's so many iconic moments in your career, Luke. Brave highlights. You're not best known for a kiss, eh?
Yeah, well, me and Bud seem to be a bit closer now. It was the first time I ever heard him call me Luke. He was very... I love the do that he's got going as well. It was... I don't know where it come from. We ran into each other in a round 17 game where I may have cut him a little cheap shot in the bicep accidentally, but he said he was going to get me back, and grand final day he hit me a few times, but all of a sudden it was 3/4 time. It was during the third quarter, and we're up by about 50 points, and when a bloke that you'd played 8 or 9 years with, spent a lot of time with, was standing there, I thought, what better place in front of 100,000 people to give him a bit of a kiss. What I didn't realise, the ball was about 30, 40 metres away, but there was cameras on us, and all of a sudden there was about 100,000 people started laughing because they got it and replayed it time and time again. So, no, Bud took it well. It was definitely not being a smart aleck.
An icon of Hawthorn, and then you get talked out of retirement to go to the Brisbane Lions. How did that come to pass?
I think I made my announcement just before my 300th game. And Fags...
Are those two still okay with it? I'm not totally sure.
Fags sent us a message saying that odd body would love the sunshine up in Queensland. I didn't think much of it. And then I remember talking to Croft towards the end of the season, and he goes, you're a long time retired. And I'm not sure if it's true or not, but he joked that he used to run past Clarko's house after he retired just to sort of say, I'm up, I'm ready to go if you give me another chance. And that sort of stuck in my mind. My last handful of games, body felt good, I was playing okay football, the passion was always there. And I guess the reason why I retired from Hawthorn is we had some young guys coming through, we had some older guys that were coming back from injury, and an old 33-year-old was going to be probably taking the spot of a person who deserved it more than me. But I guess, Fague sort of sent that message, and then once things settled down after a couple of weeks after my last game, I sort of messaged him back and sort of said, is that offer still available? And he rang me straight away, and he was... and one thing went to another, and after a few conversations with a few friends that are here tonight, I went yes, I went no, I went yes, I went no, and then my wife actually cracked it and said, just make a decision. It turned out to be a pretty good one.
A pretty good one indeed. So, drafted to be a superstar, instead you become one of the great leaders that the game has seen. Is it the career that you imagined, or did it take a little twist to something else?
What you want to do when you're a kid growing up, I remember running along the field when I was 3 or 4 at Colac, going to Dad's umpiring as a young kid, and then the fact that you get drafted, you just want to play a game, and then to go through and be able to achieve what we did as a group, you sort of sit back and pinch yourself, because you did at the start of the night, what Nick said before, is when you read all those names, you pinch yourself to sort of sit and realise that you're in the same group as them, which it's a bit surreal.
You are well and truly in this group, Luke. Congratulations. A few thank yous, I'm sure.
Firstly, a massive thank you to the AFL. I guess I reiterate everything that Aaron and Nick said about being able to stand in a room with so many greats. Still, I feel like a little kid with the footy cards, as I mentioned, but you look back, and even we had the Hawthorn Hall of Fame last year, and to see the greats of that football club, I was in awe of then, and then you walk into a room like this and you do have to pinch yourself. The next thank you's got to be the Hawthorn Football Club, to Swabby, to John Turnbull, to the recruiters, to take a risk on a 17-year-old kid who just finished year 11, was very raw. Still didn't have my licence for about 8 months into my first year at Hawthorn. And they were put under the pump for a number of years. As I mentioned, Juddy jumped out of the blocks and had a ripping 4 or 5 years. So they were put under the pump, but hopefully I repaid them by the end. So many coaches that have come through from junior footy to senior footy. I mentioned before, Clarko and Andrew Russell, the change that you guys had for me, understanding that you're not just lucky to be in this position, it should be a privilege to be able to get everything you possibly can out of it. It took me a number of years, but I did listen after a while, and the guidance and I guess Fags. There's no way I'm not going to Brisbane if it's not the respect that we have for you. I didn't know much about the Lions at that stage, but I guess the trust that we had as a family, we moved up there at the drop of a hat because of the passion and what your sight for that football club was. Football clubs are amazing places, and I know Nick said before about physios and doctors. They seem to be where the foundation of football clubs are. You hear a lot of the stories from the older players. The physios, the doctors are all absolute rippers, and that's no different at Hawthorn and Brisbane. We found ourselves in there a lot just as a senior crew, bantering with them, and I think that's the special part of football clubs. All the physios, I know I spent a lot of time in there over my 18 years, and I wouldn't have got through that journey without them. I guess Paul and Mal, I guess the managers who guided me throughout my early years, and then all the way until I retired, firstly at Hawthorn and then Brisbane. The guidance that you guys gave me off the footy field was a lot of things I still use now and take to heart. So thank you for the guide. Sal and Cam, who have guided me over the last 4 or 5 years. The care factor is unreal. I can't thank you guys enough. Also, the football's a big side of things, but what is also a massive thing is the mentors off the footy field. And I've got a lot of guys that have helped me, that have been good friends, that have helped me transition out of football, whether it's been a business side of things, whether it be dropping things at the drop of a hat and leaving and flying up to Brisbane to help us because we need it, or guys that have helped me with life and leadership stuff. That if you settle things off the footy field, it's amazing the impact that it can have on the footy field. So. A massive thank you to all the guys that you don't see that you run around with every week. The teammates, I couldn't thank you guys enough. And I sort of mentioned it on here, it was a little bit about my story, but the sacrifices that you guys that did, I guess once you have a bit of hard luck, as I mentioned in 11 and 12, the selfless mindset, what you sacrificed, whether it was positions you played, whether it was money from other clubs, we sort of had a band that would sort of stick together, and what we were able to achieve was an amazing effort. To be 4-time premiership players with you guys, I couldn't thank you enough for your sacrifices. Now, family. I've got to thank my sister Bianca. I was a bit of a terror as a kid, so for her older sister to be able to keep me in line, which wouldn't have been easy. Younger brother, Dylan, who's 12. Very rarely that you grow up and be in a profession where you can bounce things back and forth off your brother. I guess as a manager, he's learned a lot from my mistakes as a kid. So I've been able to help in that way, but I've been able to pick his brain a lot from my role at the moment. So massive thank you for siblings. Parents, the work that you guys put in, working the 2 jobs so we could actually have an enjoyable lifestyle as kids. I know it wasn't easy. Mum doing the night shift, you always knew that the sports stuff was always going to be ready. The next morning there's always lunches for school's always going to be ready when you do those long hours at night time. And also Dad used to drive to Melbourne every day, but then when we had trials and all the other stuff, at the drop of a hat you would jump back in the car and drive back to Melbourne again on your day off, just to help me get to where I wanted to get to. And finally, Loz and the boys, I guess to have 4 boys, to be able to, I guess, watch and see them grow up, obviously a wide stretch from 17 down to 5. They make you smile at the end of the day to go and watch them play sport, whether it's basketball, rugby, I'm not sure we got Chase into that, but rugby and AFL, it makes your weekends. And then finally, Lozzie, been with me throughout the whole journey. It's been an amazing journey. A lot of the things I've spoke about tonight is to be a good footballer or to be a successful footballer, it's about selfless, it's about team first. But to be a footballer, you've got to be selfish. You miss out on a lot of things. You miss out on family events. You miss out on parties where Loz has got to chuck the kids in the car and go on family holidays. And I've got to go to Tassie to play football or other things. So I know people throw out that you've been a rock, but you have been. What you've been able to do while I've been away following my dream, there's no way I would have been able to do it without you. So I love you, thank you very much. And congratulations to the rest of the inductees, and hope everyone has a great night.